There's something special about December in Maplewood Estates. Every winter, the snow would blanket the streets like powdered sugar, the sound of children laughing would echo across driveways, and neighbors would compete, quietly, but fiercely, over who had the most festive decorations. But this year was different. This year, the competition wasn't friendly anymore. It all started with a single strand of lights. Evelyn Hart, a retired schoolteacher who had lived in the neighborhood for over 20 years, decided she wanted to do something extra special for Christmas. After losing her husband the previous spring, she wanted to bring some light, literally and emotionally, back into her life. So she unpacked every box of holiday decorations she owned, polished every ornament, and bought new lights that shimmered in warm gold and gentle white. Her house soon became the brightest one on Maplewood Drive, not because it was gaudy, but because it radiated warmth. The soft lights framed every window, tiny reindeer lined the pathway, and a gentle, "Peace on Earth" sign glowed across her porch. To Evelyn, it wasn't just decoration. It was healing. It was hope. But not everyone saw it that way. The Maplewood Homeowners Association prided itself on maintaining a refined aesthetic. They had strict rules about lawn ornaments, acceptable paint colors, and even mailbox designs. And Evelyn's display, though beautiful, didn't fit their rigid standards. Within 2 days of turning her lights on, she received her first notice: "Your display exceeds approved brightness levels and does not align with community uniformity guidelines." At first, Evelyn laughed it off. It was the holidays, after all, surely they wouldn't make her take them down. But the laughter faded when she found another letter taped to her door the next morning. This one was sterner: failure to comply may result in fines or disciplinary action. Word spread quickly. Some neighbors whispered that her house looked like an airport runway. Others said she was disrupting the neighborhood aesthetic. But not everyone agreed. Children walking home from school would stop and stare in awe at the twinkling lights, their faces lighting up as brightly as the decorations themselves. A few kind neighbors even thanked her for making the street feel alive again. Still, the HOA board wasn't pleased. At the next community meeting, Evelyn's name became the main topic. The president, a woman named Carol Benson, spoke sternly about maintaining order and respecting neighborhood traditions. What she really meant was that Evelyn's home stood out too much. It broke their illusion of control. When Evelyn heard about the meeting, she felt her heart sink. She had spent weeks stringing those lights, hoping to bring comfort not only to herself but to everyone around her. And now she was being told that her act of joy was a violation. The following morning, she walked outside to find a printed HOA citation stuck to her mailbox, this time with a fine. Her lights were officially declared non-compliant. For the first time in months, she felt defeated. But that night, something unexpected happened. As she sat by her window, debating whether to take everything down, she saw a family stop by her house. A little girl, no older than 6, pressed her hands against the frosted glass and whispered something to her parents. They smiled and pointed at the glowing nativity scene Evelyn had placed near the porch. Evelyn couldn't hear what they said, but she saw the joy in their faces. And that was enough. The next morning, instead of removing her lights, she added more. She hung shimmering garlands on the fence and placed a glowing angel near her husband's old rocking chair on the porch. It wasn't about defiance anymore. It was about love. Frustration, for others, a symbol of warmth. The HOA continued sending warnings, but Evelyn refused to give up. She had lost too much that year to lose her joy as well. Then, one evening, as snowflakes drifted gently onto her roof, she noticed something unusual. Cars were lining up along the street, not to complain, but to admire. Strangers she didn't even know were stopping to take pictures. Some left small notes of thanks in her mailbox. A few children even dropped off hand-drawn cards saying how much they loved her lights. The very display that had been mocked by her HOA was now drawing the entire town's attention. And while Evelyn smiled at the sight, the HOA fumed in silence. Because what they didn't realize yet was that their fight against her lights had only made them shine brighter, both literally and in the hearts of everyone who saw them. Still, the tension was building. The HOA wasn't about to back down, and Evelyn wasn't about to surrender. Something bigger was coming, something that would turn this quiet neighborhood dispute into a local legend. And as the snow continued to fall that night, Evelyn had no idea that her humble lights were about to catch the eye of someone who could change everything, the mayor of Maplewood himself. The days that followed were colder than usual, but the lights on Evelyn Hart's house only grew warmer. What began as a small act of remembrance had turned into something much bigger, a quiet rebellion against the rigidity of the HOA and a celebration of hope for the entire community. Every evening, more cars arrived. Families brought their children to see what had now been dubbed the Miracle House. People dropped off cookies, thank you notes, and even blankets of appreciation for Evelyn, who spent her evenings sipping tea on her porch, watching strangers smile at her creation. But the HOA wasn't smiling. Carol Benson and her board members were furious. Their pristine neighborhood, once perfectly symmetrical and controlled, now had what they called a spectacle. Carol spent her evenings peeking through her blinds, taking photos as evidence of Evelyn's growing display. She told anyone who would listen that the neighborhood was losing its class. Behind closed doors, she called for an emergency HOA meeting. They decided to increase Evelyn's fines, sending her another warning letter, this time, with a threat of legal action. The letter said that if she didn't dismantle her decorations within 48 hours, the HOA would take enforcement measures. When Evelyn read it, her hands trembled slightly. She was tired of the bullying, tired of the constant surveillance, tired of being made to feel small in her own home. But as she looked out at the lights reflecting softly against the snow, she remembered something her husband once told her: kindness outshines everything, even cruelty. So instead of fighting with words, she decided to fight with light. That night, she plugged in an entirely new section of her display, hundreds of tiny bulbs spelling out one simple message across her roof: love wins. By morning, photos of the message had gone viral on local social media. A passerby had taken a picture and posted it with the caption, "Whoever this lady is, she's making Christmas beautiful again." Within hours, the post had thousands of likes and comments. People wanted to know who Evelyn was. They wanted to visit. They wanted to help. Local news stations caught wind of it. Soon, a reporter arrived at her doorstep, asking to feature her home on their holiday segment. Evelyn hesitated at first. She never wanted attention, just a little light in her life, but she agreed, hoping her story might remind others of the simple joy of giving. The segment aired that evening. It showed her home glowing against the dark winter sky, her gentle smile framed by snowflakes, and her message, "Love wins," shining bright enough to be seen from down the street. The response was overwhelming. People from neighboring towns began driving in to see the display. The small cul-de-sac became a landmark overnight. And that's when the mayor noticed. Mayor Jonathan Price was a pragmatic man, not easily swayed by sentiment. But when his daughter begged him to take her to the Miracle House, he couldn't say no. So one evening, just a week before Christmas, the mayor and his family drove down Maplewood Drive. As they approached Evelyn's house, even he had to stop and stare. The lights weren't just decorations, they told a story. Each corner of the house was glowing with warmth and care. Every bulb seemed to have been placed with intention, every detail filled with love. He saw the sign. Love wins. The mayor's wife smiled. "You can't regulate kindness," she whispered. Display wasn't removed immediately. When Evelyn opened the letter the next morning, she felt the weight of it all. The happiness, the appreciation from strangers, the sudden attention, it all came crashing down under the cold reality of the HOA's threats. For a moment, she wondered if it was worth it. But before she could even decide, a knock came at her door. It wasn't a neighbor or an officer. It was the mayor himself. Evelyn opened the door, startled, and he smiled warmly. "Ma'am," he said gently, I just came to say thank you. My family needed to see this. This is what community should look like." Those words alone were enough to bring tears to her eyes. That night, something remarkable happened. The mayor returned, this time with the local press and a few members of the city council. They gathered outside Evelyn's home and made an announcement that would shake Maplewood Estates to its core. He declared Evelyn's home an official community landmark for the holiday season, a symbol of joy, kindness, and togetherness. The crowd cheered. The cameras flashed. The HOA stood frozen, speechless. Evelyn couldn't believe it. Her home, once the subject of complaints and mockery, was now being celebrated by the entire town. So, when the mayor presented her with the award that night, it wasn't just for her lights. It was for her heart, the one that refused to go dark, no matter how much the world tried to dim it. Because in Maplewood Estates, where perfection once ruled, everyone finally learned that the brightest homes aren't the ones with the most rules, but the ones with the most love. But beneath the glittering lights and cheerful laughter, tension simmered. The HOA board, led by Carol Benson, felt humiliated. What was supposed to be a small disciplinary action had spiraled into a public relations disaster. Their carefully controlled community image was now overshadowed by a single woman's spirit, a woman they had tried to silence. Carol refused to let that stand. While most neighbors were basking in the glow of Evelyn's success, Carol was drafting letters, not to Evelyn this time, but to the mayor's office. She claimed the recognition was unauthorized, that Evelyn's lights violated several municipal codes, and that the mayor's visit had encouraged non-compliance within a regulated neighborhood. She even threatened to sue the city for overstepping HOA jurisdiction. The letter made its way to City Hall, but instead of support, it sparked laughter. The mayor, already charmed by Evelyn's kindness, saw through Carol's bitterness. Rather than back down, he decided to go one step further, to make Evelyn's message of kindness official. He organized a town event called Light Up the Heart of Maplewood, inviting families from every neighborhood to join. The highlight of the night would be a special recognition for Evelyn, not just for her decorations, but for reminding everyone what the holidays were truly about. When the invitations went out, the entire town buzzed with excitement. Everyone except the HOA board. Carol tried to rally her members to boycott the event, but only a handful agreed. Most had grown tired of her relentless control and could no longer deny how much joy Evelyn's lights had brought to their families. Children who once feared the strict HOA rules now played in front of Evelyn's yard, building snowmen under the gentle shimmer of her Christmas lights. Even the coldest hearts were warming. When the night of the ceremony arrived, the air was crisp and full of anticipation. Snow fell softly, coating the ground in silver. Music played from a local choir, and the scent of hot cocoa filled the air. Families gathered, holding candles, while the mayor stood before a small podium set up on Maplewood Drive. Evelyn stood quietly near her porch, wrapped in her late husband's coat. She had no idea she was about to receive something that would forever change how the community saw her. The mayor began his speech by recalling how one woman's simple act of kindness had turned a neighborhood dispute into a lesson in unity. He spoke of how her lights reminded people of hope, compassion, and resilience in a time when the world needed it most. Then, with a proud smile, he called Evelyn forward. As she approached the podium, the crowd erupted into applause. She tried to hold back tears, her heart swelling with gratitude. The mayor handed her a framed certificate and a small golden medal engraved with the town's emblem, the Maplewood Heart Award, the highest community honor given for acts that bring light and love to others. It wasn't just symbolic. It was historic. Because never before had someone from the HOA's own neighborhood been honored for something the board had tried to destroy. The cameras flashed as Evelyn held the medal, her lights twinkling behind her like a halo. She spoke softly into the microphone, her voice trembling but steady. She thanked the community for standing by her. She spoke of her late husband, whose love had inspired every light she'd hung. And then, she smiled and said something that would echo through Maplewood for years to come. You can fine me, mock me, or write your rules, but you can't stop kindness from shining. The crowd erupted once more, cheering and clapping. Even some HOA members wiped away tears. The city installed a small bronze plaque in front of Evelyn's home that read, "In honor of Evelyn Hart, whose light reminded us all that love always wins." The HOA had no choice but to back down. Any attempt to fine her now would be seen as an attack on a town hero. And so, they quietly amended their rules, allowing seasonal displays of community significance. It was their way of saving face, but everyone knew whose name had changed those rules forever. Winter eventually faded into spring, and though the lights were taken down, their spirit remained. Evelyn's home continued to be a place where neighbors gathered, laughed, and shared stories. For the first time in years, Maplewood Estates felt like a real community again, not because of the HOA, but because of one woman's courage to keep shining when the world told her to dim her light. And every December after that, the town held the Light Up the Heart of Maplewood Festival in her honor. Children who once came to see her display would grow up remembering that one year when a single woman's Christmas lights changed everything. Evelyn never asked for recognition. All she wanted was to bring joy to her neighborhood, and in the end, she brought it to an entire town. So, when the mayor presented her with the award that night, it wasn't just for her lights. It was for her heart, the one that refused to go dark, no matter how much the world tried to dim it. Because in Maplewood Estates, where perfection once ruled, everyone finally learned that the brightest homes aren't the ones with the most rules, but the ones with the most love.